It's time again for the SMC Journal podcast. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Thank you for joining us today. This show is all about performance engineering, testing, tuning, monitoring in today's world of IT, hardware, software, and anything in between. We talk many times to organizations that do the actual performance testing and engineering services. But it's another thing to talk to a company who not only does the services, but has built a product around these services. It comes from the feedback from their customers. And I like talking to those companies because they build the product with the end user in mind. And it's usually by performance engineers for performance engineers. And this is the case today. It also happens to be a sponsor of the show, Performance Lab. So we're going to be talking with them about their services as well as their product, BoomQ. So more about that after these messages about the sponsors that make this show happen. This episode is sponsored by Micro Focus and the LoadRunner Solutions family. That includes LoadRunner Professional, Enterprise, Cloud, and Developer. Performance matters. Did you know that LoadRunner Solutions have the largest community of practitioners in the world? Join that community at community.microfocus.com, scan the QR code, and check out the LoadRunner family page on performance engineering, as well as their YouTube playlist that we've got links for in the show notes on smcjournal.com as well as YouTube. This episode is sponsored by Performance Lab. They're a provider of premier load and performance testing services for enterprises in all industries. They focus on a robust methodology, tools, and the experienced engineers that know what they're doing. Since 2008, they have built a reputation for reliability worldwide. BoomQ is their own innovative performance testing platform. However, they also consult around many industry standard load testing tools like JMeter, LoadRunner, and others. Find out more at performancelabus.com. This podcast is sponsored by Folk Consulting. They offer high-quality consulting services around application performance management and operational monitoring of system performance. Ryan Folk and his staff of highly experienced consultants can handle any of your needs around application delivery management, analytics, application performance testing, monitoring, and digital management. Find out more at folkconsulting.com. Thanks to all the sponsors who support the performance testing community, as well as this show specifically. So on with the show. BoomQ and Performance Lab are part of the sponsorship of the SMC Journal, and they're made up of a company of performance engineers. And I wanted to bring on one of their product managers to talk about their product as well as the company today, to introduce you to them, as well as another potential product you might be interested in if you are a performance tester or performance engineer. And from what I understand, this product is made for people that maybe don't have a lot of experience doing performance testing so that they can get started quickly. So with that, let's go to our interview today. Hello, Mr. Vic Kufshinoff. Thank you for being on the SMC Journal podcast with us today.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm good. Vic, why don't you talk about who you are and the company that you represent, and tell our viewers just a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a product manager of BoomQ product, and we at Performance Lab are developing a solution for low-code performance testing, where in complex scenarios, our performance engineers in Performance Lab also can support customers with turnkey, instantly delivered services. So we cover all the stages of the performance testing, from inception and understanding the customer goals to actual delivery. If the customer is willing to do the performance testing by themselves, we provide them with a product. If they need our support and they are not enough technical to actually do it themselves, we can deliver the whole turnkey solution.
Okay, well, let's talk about that for a minute. So there's Performance Lab, and then there's a product called BoomQ. Talk about Performance Lab and the services that you offer.
Yeah, so for a decade now, we were providing services for the performance testing for the big and the small and the medium-sized businesses. We worked for such names as Eon and Tinder and Moody's even. We optimized, benchmarked, tested all kinds of possible systems for different reasons. So our main value is that we can test anything which can be actually run, and we focus on delivery, the customer value there. So we take what the customer really wants to achieve, work with them on the performance testing plan, which would allow and enable them to do that, and then deliver it together with the customer.
So my understanding is you have a very mature organization, mature process, and engineers that really know what they're doing. So if a customer is using LoadRunner, that's fine. If they're using JMeter, that's fine. Whatever tool they want to use, is that correct?
We are totally tool agnostic, right? There are sometimes considerations inside the customer to use a particular tool, and we are fine to support those requests. We also usually, as part of our project, we build the methodology and we advise what kind of tool could be useful for the customer in this particular situation. And in many cases, it's actually our in-house BoomQ, which allows us to hand over the tests to the customer so they could be continuously run in future, and which also enables the customer to see the performance of the system as a trend. So they can run a test. They sometimes find an issue, sometimes more often than not, right? And then they need a retest, and that retest and that comparison is very handy because you are able to see the performance before and after any fixes were conducted to the system. So that is one of the values of the BoomQ. But in terms of the services, we never insist. Right, we believe that our product is good enough to sell itself without insisting that it has to be used.
And that's interesting because I've known several companies who started out as just performance testing services organizations, but as they do more and more projects, they get feedback from customers where maybe a tool is doing 80% of what they need, but it doesn't meet all their needs. And then this company then says, well, why don't we create something that meets our customers' needs, or at least the customers that we have, that we can fill that space. It sounds like that's what BoomQ sort of maybe started from. Talk
Yeah,
more about this product.
yeah, that's basically the path which happened to us as well. But it's not only entirely customer driven. Of course, customers provide the feedback on the existing tooling, but they often also provide feedback on the value which they're getting as the project feedback. And we strongly observe that by optimizing it for our engineering teams as well, which are actually delivering the projects, we do understand better what might be needed in future. And that's the reason why we started building BoomQ, because example given, right, this comparison functionality which I was talking about was born, well, because we were comparing tests all the time. Right, and that totally made sense to deliver the comparison functionality, so customer can visually see how two tests are comparing to each other, how the performance took a hit or improved with the recent changes, and from there we build on top of it. And okay, and what if you compare two tests? That is understandable, but what if you need to compare multiple tests? What if you are actually, as part of the performance lifecycle and development lifecycle, need to know if you are moving in the right direction or not? And that's where our trending capability got born, and we started to build the plot of the points of the performance of the system. And that's where another customer asked us, hey guys, and can you actually run those tests from an API, so I can actually, every release I do, we will just call your API, it will run the test, and it will be visualized in our dashboard. And then we build another functionality for launching the test through API. So yes, it is quite organic, and we have, this is what is important for me as a product manager, is that we have the source of feedback both in-house and from the customers, which we are working with all the time, which providing us with validated information on what is needed, both from the market and to optimize the speed of delivery of those projects. And that's what we're focusing on, making customers happier, seeing the results which they need to see, and optimizing the actual side of implementation of the project for our engineering guys.
Now I understand that you've got a video of a demo of the product, so we can actually see that with us today. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Let's do that.
Okay, let's go to that video now.
So let's go into pre-existing project. You can see that on top level we have user groups between which you can easily distribute the load, both in percentage and users. Absolutely users, you can always open the group and see what actually that group contains. So there you see on the top level, you see transactions, which are very easy to add as a drag and drop interface. You can always undo that and delete it. You can as well add the HTTP request. Let's open the existing one so you can see that there is already an HTTP request. I can easily add into this one, and then I can open it and quickly edit it. So I want to post on google.com, and I can add some query parameters like key, value, and something like that. I can of course parameterize all that. I can set up headers, body of the request, extracts from response and assertions, and add timers so we can emulate the realistic load. So it's always very easy and transparent. We can as well set up some logic there. We can loop through the things. We can create ifs and whiles, so we can use all the functionality required for that. So once the test is already set up, we can actually go and look at the load profile of that test. That is set up as well very easily. So you can see we have two test types, stable and scalability. Stable is meant to actually perform a load test for a given time on a certain level of virtual users, whereas scalability test is meant to ramp up until number of steps is reached and then run for a certain period of time. That is very easy to adjust. You can always say that you want to run more or less steps, more users, as well as more time per step, and you can see it automatically recalculating. You can say that instead of clicking for 100 times, of course, you can just type it into the field and you will see everything recalculating magically. So once you are ready, you can just set up the SLAs to make sure that you are reporting on the transactions meaningfully, that you want to check that you actually achieved your results. That could be done on the test level, overall transaction response times. You can do it on the transaction level, basically saying that you want a particular transaction, example given main page, responding in less than 5 seconds, and you can do it as well on a request level. So you basically take a particular request, you can tell in which transaction specifically you are looking for it, and in which thread group and what is the actual requirement. You can as well adjust the time on which you are actually looking for that result, because you are not always willing to see the overall transaction, but you might want to set it up per step as we are describing it here. So once you are ready, you actually can just check the box and run the test, and that will start the test and will get you immediately the information on the test running. So let's open the existing test, and I will show you it over there. So as you go, you will be collecting the information on actual throughput, number of users, number of requests sent, and number of errors happening. So as you can see, that was pretty successful test, except like a small blip over here where we actually had some errors. But you can also see that aggregated response times were growing over time, and then eventually the system significantly degraded in the performance. You can as well drill into the SLAs, and you can see what exactly how exactly it was looking. So you see that the error rates were pretty good, but some of the transactions actually were behaving differently, and here you can see one of them actually failing the SLA. So then you can as well always drill into the detailed statistics, which will show you how individual transactions were performing. You can filter that in a convenient Grafana dashboard, where you can as well compare the transactions one to another. So you can see individual transactions if you filter by it on the top, like you select billing details. Let's do that, and you will see that in individual transaction you actually see the only one which you are interested in with an average and percentile, and it's very convenient to manage all the results in one place. So that would be probably it. You can as well see, of course, the system metrics. So you would eventually analyze what brought you this degradation in performance and what happened over there. So you can see whatever you set up in terms of CPU, disk, RAM, network, kernel, process, and other Docker and other system metrics. Thank you guys for your time. You can run all that in a continuous manner. And you can see those statistics right embedded into your dashboards through our Sla reports, which come into two flavors. One is tabular and one is graph, and you can see here the red dot on the graph immediately showing you that SLA was failed and the details of what was the failure. And you can see that other SLAs were green, meaning successful, but you still can see the details. And you can import it into your dashboards and make sure that basically every run, which could be initiated, by the way, as I mentioned, through the API or through the product itself, will show up directly on your dashboard for your awareness. Actually also add your requests and set up your test by importing the data from Insomnia and Google Analytics and Postman and JMeter. So we have a very flexible tool which allows you in no time to record or set up your test and have your system tested without much of the effort.
Okay, thanks for showing us that demo. It's very interesting. It brings me to another question here, which is you built this product based upon the feedback from your customers, and it's kind of grown into more of a continuous performance validation product. What are the current challenges that you're seeing more and more of today? Is it the same old thing? Is it Kubernetes deployed applications? What are people struggling with that you're working with on performance solutions for?
Yeah, it's a mix of things, right? So there is always some level of same old. My website is not working. My response times are way too high. But at the same time, we definitely see a significant increase in cloud deployments, and we see that people actually start feeling that the engineering teams are starting to feel that their work and their scaling not only is in binary mode of working, not working mode, but it also becomes a pretty expensive exercise if they have unlimited scaling. It goes through the roof, and then they actually spend thousands in the matter of minutes, and they realize that it's better to know upfront how it's going to perform, and if it's not going to perform, stop it from hitting the production. So we see more and more of cloud deployments, and as you mentioned, the continuous, it is in the majority of the cases, it is actually continuous integration and deployment. So basically, whatever passes the unit test actually hits the production and goes there without usually significant performance checks, and that could actually lead to this bill getting out of control. So that's where our customers started to come up and say, hey, could you check if it scales correctly? Could you check if the performance is actually under control? So they are not anymore asking, what is the maximum performance my environment can support? Because, it is significantly improved with the hosted solutions like AWS and Kubernetes, etc. But they're asking, okay, could you tell me if I'm in the right range for the scaling and for the right amount of money, I'm getting the right performance? That's what we're getting more and more. But also the other aspect is that if previously, IT and performance engineering was for big enterprises. You did the performance testing usually when you were comparing the HP cluster to IBM cluster, etc. Nowadays, it's literally needed for everyone because your fridge is probably running some sort of Internet of Things technology, and that technology actually is talking to you some backend somewhere, and that needs to be tested. And basically, the technology penetrated every level of our life, and the performance testing is actually in higher demand. And because it's in higher demand, more people are getting acquainted with it, And that's where we are trying to put our product and our services to make them available so they can resolve it with minimum friction, with a low-code solution, which will visualize them all the problems. And if there is any issue for them to work on it themselves, if they don't want to touch anything technical at all, we are here to support them with our services.
What I find interesting about what you're saying is it used to be when we were talking about performance stuff, we were talking about making things faster. Now we're talking about reducing the cost of something. So there's a direct impact financially. So people want efficiency and they want resiliency and they don't want a high cloud bill. And I think that's great because it just means that it puts the spotlight more on what we're trying to do. It may be great that it's fast, but people also want it to be less expensive too.
I do agree with that sentiment because basically it puts the performance testing where it always should have been, and the performance in general. It's a business, right? About making it more cost efficient or making it earn more money. And previously, it was just more about speed, which is not that much value driven, right?
Yeah,
By itself.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Vic, for being on the show today. We'll be sure to make sure that we have the links to not only your site, the BoomQ product, and we'll feature some of these print screens out there as well.
Thanks a lot, and we will be having a special campaign running for the customers, which will come from SMC Journal, and I hope they will enjoy our product. And
thanks again. Okay, so what do you think? I thought that was pretty interesting. I'd like to know your feedback on this. You can reach me very easily at my website, scottmoore.consulting. Also, feel free to reach out to me on social networking. LinkedIn, I've got a profile there as well as a Twitter handle. But if you'd rather send me an email, you can reach me at help@scottmoore.consulting. How about this content? Do you like it? If you do, please subscribe and like our YouTube channel. That tells me that we're headed in the right direction, but your direct feedback is also appreciated. So thank you for being with us on this show. We'll see you next time for this episode of the SMC Journal. This is Scott Moore saying thanks and bye-bye.